The spiritual community and the logical world have both completely lied to you about how reality creation actually works. They tell you that it is normal to react to your physical circumstances, to cry over your empty bank account, and to accept your financial reality as the absolute truth. I'm going to tell you a devastating secret that the elite 1% desperately want to keep hidden from you. Your emotional reaction to the physical world is the exact biological mechanism that is keeping you broke. Today, I am going to deliver a $5,000 masterclass that will completely shatter your paradigm. I am going to teach you the dark psychological art of gaslighting the universe. I will prove to you mechanically, using the laws of Neville Goddard, that completely stopping your reactions and unapologetically gaslighting your physical reality is the only way to force the quantum field to hand you millions of dollars. If you are exhausted from being a reactive victim to your own bank account and you are ready to learn how to manipulate the three-dimensional matrix to your exact will, take a brief moment to subscribe to this channel right now. Your pathetic era of reacting ends today, and your era of gaslighting the universe begins in this exact microsecond. We must immediately dissect the toxic, paralyzing disease that human society calls realism. What does it actually mean to be a realistic person? When society commands you to be realistic about your money, they are commanding you to look at your current physical circumstances, accept them as the absolute final truth, and lower your internal expectations to match your external suffering. They are literally instructing you to look at your empty bank account and surrender your divine, godlike creative authority to a digital screen. Realism is nothing but the religion of the terrified victim. It is the ultimate coping mechanism for people who are too weak and too afraid to claim their massive desires in the face of temporary opposition. Since the day you were born, you have been aggressively conditioned to believe that ignoring your physical reality is a symptom of clinical insanity. You have been told that if you have $10 to your name, but you walk around your house acting, thinking, and feeling with the absolute certainty of a multi-millionaire, you are completely crazy. People will call you delusional. They will tell you that you are out of touch with reality. But I want you to pause and ask yourself a very brutal mechanical question. What exactly has your precious sanity actually given you? Your logical, rational, highly realistic mind has given you absolutely nothing but anxiety, suffocating debt, and a life of constant, exhausting financial struggle. If being realistic is the exact mechanism that is keeping you trapped in a cycle of poverty, then sanity is a terminal illness, and delusion is the only medicine that can save your life. To completely master the art of financial delusion, we must entirely destroy your blind obedience to your 5 physical senses. You are currently living your life as an absolute slave to your eyes, your ears, and your sense of touch. You treat your 5 senses like they are the ultimate, unquestionable judges of your reality. If you cannot see the millions of dollars sitting on your table with your physical eyes, your logical brain immediately concludes that the money does not exist and that you must panic. This is a catastrophic, fundamental misunderstanding of how quantum physics and the law of assumption actually operate. Your 5 senses are not creators. They are completely incapable of creating anything new in your life. Your 5 senses are nothing more than biological security cameras, and those cameras are always constantly playing a delayed tape from the past. I want you to think about a paleontologist digging in the dirt and finding the fossilized bones of a dinosaur. The fossil is a physical fact. You can see it, you can touch it, and you can measure it. But the fossil is not a living dinosaur. It is just a dead, hardened record of something that existed millions of years ago. Your physical reality, and specifically your current bank account, operates on this exact same principle. The negative balance you see on your phone screen is not a living, active truth. It is a financial fossil. It is the dead, hardened, physical record of the poverty consciousness you assumed weeks, months, or years ago in your imagination. When you choose to be realistic, you are choosing to look at a dead fossil and allow it to dictate the emotional state of your present moment. You are staring at the dead bones of your past mistakes and treating them like they have the power to control your future. This is the definition of spiritual madness. The true master of manifestation does not negotiate with fossils. The master knows that if you want to change the physical movie playing on the screen of your life, you cannot stand in the theater and scream at the canvas. You have to go upstairs into the projection room of your own dark imagination and violently change the film roll. But you absolutely cannot change the film if you are obsessed with being realistic about the current scene. To change your financial destiny, you must completely turn your back on the physical screen. You must violently, aggressively reject the concrete evidence of your five senses. You must look directly at your empty bank account, completely ignore the mathematical facts, stare into the dead mirror of your poverty, and boldly declare that you are currently sitting on a massive empire of millions of dollars. This requires a level of psychological arrogance and stubbornness that the average human being is completely terrified of. This requires you to step out of the illusion of logic and step fully into the supreme power of absolute delusion. Neville Goddard gave us the exact, precise terminology for this godlike state of mind. He did not call it being positive, and he did not call it hoping for the best. He called it brazen impudence. Brazen impudence is the unapologetic, disrespectful, and completely delusional refusal to accept the physical facts of your current reality as final. It is the cold psychopathic ability to stand in the absolute middle of a massive financial hurricane, with bills piling up on your desk and debt collectors calling your phone, and internally feel the heavy, boring, undeniable certainty of a billionaire. To your family, to your friends, and to the logical world, this behavior looks like pure, unfiltered madness. They will laugh at you and tell you that you are living in a fantasy world. But to the quantum field, this exact same delusion looks like the supreme, unbreakable command of a creator. The universe does not care if your physical reality currently matches your internal assumption. The universe is a blind, mechanical system that only responds to the frequency of your absolute conviction. It does not judge whether your assumption is realistic or unrealistic. It only measures whether your assumption is dominant. I want you to deeply internalize how a parallel reality is formed. When you practice brazen impudence, you are essentially performing psychological gaslighting on your own physical circumstances. You are looking at the three-dimensional world and telling it that it is completely wrong. When your bank account says you are poor, you look at it and coldly respond that it is hallucinating because you are a multimillionaire. You refuse to blink. You refuse to flinch. You stubbornly maintain this internal delusion of massive wealth, and you absolutely refuse to drop the character, no matter what terrifying illusions the physical mirror throws at you. When you hold this delusional state with iron discipline, something magnificent happens. The physical mirror eventually breaks under the pressure of your assumption. The three-dimensional world has no independent energy of its own, so it cannot fight your dominant state forever. The physical world is eventually forced to bend, warp, and violently rearrange its events, people, and circumstances to perfectly match your internal madness. Every single person who has ever changed the world, every self-made billionaire, and every visionary creator was considered completely delusional by society, right up until the exact microsecond their delusion hardened into undeniable physical fact. You must stop trying to be a rational adult. You must stop trying to be sensible with your manifestations. You must embrace the ultimate power of being completely, unapologetically out of touch with your physical poverty. The three-dimensional world is a mindless slave to your imagination, but the slave will only obey a master who is bold enough, arrogant enough, and delusional enough to demand the impossible. We must now dissect the exact mechanical execution of this psychological weapon and confront the terrifying biological barrier that stops people from using it. Neville Goddard had a highly specific, uncompromising term for this exact state of consciousness. He called it brazen impudence. But in modern psychological terms, brazen impudence is simply the absolute psychopathic art of gaslighting the universe. When you practice brazen impudence, you are violently stripping the three-dimensional world of its unearned authority and completely stopping your emotional reactions to it. You are actively performing psychological gaslighting on your own physical circumstances. In the modern world, gaslighting is considered a toxic psychological manipulation where you try to convince someone that their memory or perception of reality is completely wrong. While this is terrible to do to a human being, it is the exact, precise mechanical weapon you must use against the dead mirror of your physical reality. When you log into your banking application and you see a negative balance, the physical mirror is trying to tell you that you are poor. The beginner panics and agrees with the mirror. The master of brazen impudence looks at the negative balance, refuses to blink, and coldly gaslights the screen. The master looks at the numbers and silently declares that the screen is hallucinating, that the bank is malfunctioning, and that the poverty is a complete and absolute illusion. The master stubbornly maintains the internal identity of a multi-millionaire, completely ignoring the screaming evidence of the 5 physical senses. You must become completely unreasonable. You must stop trying to negotiate with your poverty. You cannot politely ask the universe to change your circumstances. You must brazenly, shamelessly, and arrogantly assume the state of the wish fulfilled, and you must refuse to drop the character of the billionaire, no matter how hard the physical world tries to intimidate you. You are not waiting for the money to arrive in the future. You are aggressively claiming that you already possess the massive wealth right now, in this exact microsecond, and you are treating any physical evidence to the contrary as a temporary, irrelevant glitch in the matrix. This is the absolute peak of spiritual power. It is the cold, calculated madness that forces the quantum field to collapse the illusion of time and instantly rearrange the physical atoms of your world to match your internal delusion. However, there is a massive, terrifying reason why you have not been able to do this yet. I know exactly what happens when you try to be delusional about your money. You sit in your room, you close your eyes, and you try to practice brazen impudence. You try to tell yourself that you are a multi-millionaire and that your debts do not exist. But the exact microsecond you try to hold this new, wealthy identity, a violent war erupts inside your physical vessel. Your physical body completely betrays your spiritual intention. Your heart starts pounding violently against your ribs. Your chest tightens. Your breathing becomes shallow. Your palms start to sweat, and a massive, suffocating wave of anxiety washes over your entire nervous system. You feel a deep, sickening sense of cognitive dissonance. You feel like a liar, a fraud, and a fool. Why does this happen? Why does your body physically punish you for trying to imagine a better life? It happens because you are currently trapped in a massive biological prison, and you are trying to fight millions of years of human evolution with positive affirmations. Your primitive animal brain, specifically the amygdala, is entirely wired for absolute physical survival. Your nervous system does not understand quantum physics. It does not understand the law of assumption. And it certainly does not understand brazen impudence. Your nervous system only understands safety and danger. Because you have spent your entire life living in a state of financial struggle, your primitive brain has mapped poverty as your baseline of safety. It is familiar, it is predictable, and therefore the body thinks it is safe. When you suddenly try to introduce the massive, expansive, powerful delusion of being a multimillionaire, your primitive brain perceives this massive change as a literal, life-threatening danger. When you look at an unpaid electric bill and try to ignore it, your logical mind creates a massive gap between what your eyes are seeing and what your imagination is claiming. Your amygdala instantly detects this gap, assumes you have lost your mind, and sounds the ultimate biological alarm. It violently floods your entire bloodstream with cortisol and adrenaline. It forces your body into a terrifying state of fight or flight. Your physical cells are literally screaming that you are in mortal danger, and you are desperately trying to sit on your couch and peacefully visualize $1 million. It is a complete biological catastrophe. You cannot outsmart a dysregulated nervous system. You cannot out-affirm a body that is drowning in survival hormones. The reason 99% of the people in the manifestation community stay completely broke is because they are trying to use spiritual techniques as a band-aid for a massive biological hemorrhage. They are trying to forcefully change their psychological identity while their physical hardware is locked in a state of absolute terror. You will never ever be able to successfully gaslight the three-dimensional world, and you will never be able to sustain the arrogance of brazen impudence as long as your physical body is treating your delusion like a predator. If your heart rate spikes every time you think about massive wealth, the mirror of reality will only reflect your biological panic, and you will manifest nothing but more anxiety and more debt. You must manually turn off the survival alarm inside your physical body. You must force your physical vessel to understand that the unpaid bill is not a hungry lion, and that the delusion of massive wealth is completely safe, because this biological trap is the ultimate destroyer of your financial empire, and because I refuse to let you remain a slave to your own primitive brain, I have provided the exact mechanical solution for you. I want you to pause this audio right now and look directly below this video in the pinned comment section. I have left a highly specific, life-saving physical protocol there for you. This protocol is not a manifestation technique. It is a biological override code. It is entirely designed to instantly bypass your panicked, logical mind, completely regulate your terrified nervous system, and aggressively flush the survival hormones out of your physical bloodstream. It forces your physical cells to turn off the alarm and drop into a state of absolute, undeniable physical safety. Go to the pinned comment right now and use this protocol to manually hack your biological hardware. When your nervous system is finally calm, the cognitive dissonance will completely evaporate. The physical panic will instantly disappear. You will finally be able to look directly at your empty bank account, completely ignore the numbers, and feel the heavy, boring, absolute certainty of the billionaire, without your heart racing by a single beat. Once your physical body is entirely regulated and the fear has completely vanished from your bloodstream, you are finally ready to weaponize your delusion and force the universe to surrender to your command. You are ready to live entirely in the parallel reality of your own imagination. The master of the law of assumption understands that the three-dimensional world is nothing more than a delayed, sterile waiting room. It is a dead echo of the past. When you successfully neutralize your nervous system, you stop treating the physical world like it is happening right now. You look at your current poverty and you treat it like an incredibly boring, expired receipt from a grocery store. You do not scream at the receipt. You do not fight the receipt. You simply turn your back on it and walk entirely into the glorious, massive, unbothered reality of your own mind. You wake up in the morning, and before you even open your physical eyes, you immediately assume the heavy, arrogant posture of the monarch who owns everything. You put on the invisible crown, and you wear it with absolute, psychopathic apathy throughout your entire day. You do not check the physical mirror to see if the crown is there, because checking the mirror is an admission of doubt, and doubt is the exact opposite of brazen impudence. You must carry the massive, invisible weight of your millions of dollars with such intense, unshakable conviction that the physical world begins to look like a blurry, irrelevant dream. This is not about escaping reality. This is about replacing reality. You are suffocating the old physical world by completely withdrawing your emotional attention from it. A physical reality cannot survive if you do not feed it the blood of your emotional reaction. The exact moment you look at a terrifying bill and you feel absolutely nothing, the old reality begins to violently collapse because it no longer has a fuel source. You starve the poverty and you feed the delusion. You aggressively, stubbornly maintain the internal assumption that you are completely financially free, and you refuse to let any physical circumstance, any logical argument, or any temporary failure knock you off the throne of your own imagination. When you finally reach this state of absolute, unbreakable delusion, the quantum field has absolutely no choice but to violently rush in and materialize that wealth in the physical world. We have now arrived at the final, most advanced, and completely uncompromising psychological chamber of this massive $5,000 masterclass. We must permanently install the architecture of absolute delusion into your daily life, and we must teach you exactly how to live entirely inside a parallel reality without ever breaking character. You understand that realism is a disease. You understand that brazen impudence is the cure. You understand how to manually override your terrified biological nervous system. But the ultimate test of the master, the exact point where 99% of beginners completely fail and fall back into poverty, is the grueling, silent test of endurance. How exactly do you wake up every single morning, look at a broken physical reality, look at your empty bank account, and successfully sustain the identity of a multi-billionaire without losing your mind? The answer is incredibly simple, but it requires a level of psychopathic emotional discipline that society has never taught you. You must permanently sever the emotional cord that connects your internal state of being to your external physical circumstances. You must become completely, totally, and ruthlessly emotionally dead to the three-dimensional world. I want you to deeply analyze the mechanical difference between a thermometer and a thermostat. A thermometer is a pathetic, reactive instrument. A thermometer simply looks at the temperature of the room and passively reflects it. If the room is cold, the thermometer drops. If the room is hot, the thermometer rises. The thermometer has absolutely no creative power. It is a total slave to its environment. The human being who operates on financial realism is nothing but a cheap thermometer. They look at their bank account, they see that it is empty, and their internal emotional state immediately drops into panic and depression. They are constantly taking the temperature of the physical world to see if they are allowed to be happy today. A thermostat, on the other hand, is the supreme master of the environment. A thermostat does not care what the current temperature of the room is. The thermostat simply assumes a specific number, locks it in, and completely ignores the current physical facts. If the room is freezing cold, the thermostat does not panic. It does not cry, and it does not change its internal setting. It stubbornly holds the new temperature until the massive mechanical furnace kicks on and physically forces the entire room to change and perfectly match the setting. You must stop being a pathetic, realistic thermometer, and you must violently become a delusional thermostat. When your bank account is freezing cold and completely empty, you do not drop your internal state to match the poverty. You stubbornly, arrogantly, and delusionally lock your internal setting to the frequency of millions of dollars. You refuse to lower your standard. You refuse to react to the cold. You simply hold the invisible assumption of massive wealth, completely unbothered by the physical facts, until the quantum field is violently forced to turn on the furnace of manifestation and heat your physical reality with endless amounts of money. To successfully operate as a delusional thermostat, you must radically redefine your definition of sanity. You must learn to treat the physical world around you as nothing more than a delayed, incredibly boring movie that you have already seen 100 times. I want you to think about the absolute worst financial problem you are currently facing right now in this exact microsecond. Maybe you have massive credit card debt. Maybe you cannot pay your rent. Maybe you are working a job that is completely destroying your soul. I want you to take that terrifying physical problem, and I want you to visually shrink it down in your mind until it looks like a cheap plastic toy. The reason this problem has so much power over you is because you are giving it your undivided emotional attention. You are feeding the problem with the blood of your fear. You must stop feeding the ghost. You must learn to look directly at your massive debt and feel absolutely nothing. You must cultivate the crushing, heavy weight of billionaire boredom. When a true physical multi-billionaire receives a bill for $1,000, they do not have a panic attack. They do not hyperventilate. They do not call their family members crying about how unfair the universe is. They look at the piece of paper with absolute psychopathic apathy. They pay the bill, drop the receipt, and entirely forget about it 3 seconds later, because $1,000 is completely meaningless to their massive financial empire. You must aggressively steal this exact psychological posture, even if you only have $10 left to your physical name. When you hand that $10 to a cashier to buy your food, you must hand it over with the cold, dead, unbothered eyes of a billionaire who could not possibly care less. You do not feel the loss. You do not count the pennies. You perform the physical transaction with the absolute certainty that your internal four-dimensional vault is currently overflowing with endless millions. You must treat the physical loss of money as a completely irrelevant optical illusion. This level of delusion is the ultimate spiritual weapon because it entirely strips the physical world of its false authority over you. When the physical world tries to scare you with an unexpected expense and you respond with a yawn of absolute boredom, the physical world loses its grip. The matrix literally breaks. The quantum mirror is designed to reflect your dominant state, and if your dominant state is the arrogant, unbothered boredom of a multi-billionaire, the mirror has absolutely no choice but to desperately rearrange the physical atoms of your reality to give you the millions of dollars that match your internal apathy. But you must understand that the physical world is stubborn. It is built on the law of inertia. It will try to test your delusion. The universe will send you a massive bill just to see if you will break character. The universe will show you an empty bank account just to see if you will drop your crown and return to the pathetic state of a realistic beggar. This is the exact moment where the master is separated from the slave. When the physical reality throws a terrifying illusion at you, you must double down on your brazen impudence. You must look the illusion directly in the eye and silently declare, "I do not care what you show me. I know who I am, and I absolutely refuse to blink." You must become the most stubborn, unreasonable, and delusional entity in the entire cosmos. You must completely ignore the screaming evidence of your 5 senses. Your eyes will tell you that you are poor. Your logical brain will tell you that you are crazy. Your friends will tell you that you are out of touch with reality. You must treat all of them like background noise in a movie you are no longer paying attention to. You retreat entirely into the massive, glorious, overflowing parallel reality of your own human imagination. Neville Goddard explicitly taught that the human imagination is the only true living reality, and the physical world is just a dead shadow, a delayed echo of what you have already done in your mind. If you want to be rich, you must stop living in the dead shadow and start living entirely in the living light. You must build a massive, invisible mansion of wealth inside your mind, and you must move into that mansion permanently. You furnish it with the finest luxury. You fill the invisible bank accounts with endless millions. You wear the invisible crown of absolute financial dominion. And you absolutely refuse to leave that invisible mansion, no matter what happens in the temporary physical world outside. When you physically walk down the street, you are not a broke human being hoping for a miracle. You are a multi-millionaire wearing a temporary physical disguise. When you talk to people who complain about the economy, inflation, and the cost of living, you politely nod your head, but internally, you are sitting on a throne of solid gold, completely untouched by their pathetic, realistic matrix of poverty. You do not argue with them. You do not try to convince them that you are rich. You simply sit in the absolute, silent, arrogant knowing of your own supreme authority. You are the sole operant power of your universe. There is no external God sitting on a cloud waiting to judge if you are worthy of millions. There is no universal committee deciding if you have worked hard enough to deserve wealth. There is only your own, uncompromising assumption. The exact microsecond you completely reject realism and fully, unapologetically embrace the absolute delusion of your massive wealth, the walls of the physical prison instantly collapse. The debt disintegrates. The lack of money evaporates. The endless struggle comes to a violent, permanent end. The universe is finally forced to bend the knee to the true monarch. Because you refuse to conform to the physical mirror is now violently forced to conform to you. The massive financial windfalls, the unexpected checks, the explosive business opportunities, and the millions of dollars will suddenly crash into your physical reality with terrifying speed. Not because you begged for them, but because you stubbornly, delusionally assumed that they were already yours. You did not change the physical world by fighting it. You changed the physical world by completely and totally ignoring it. You starved the poverty to death with your apathy, and you fed the millions with your unshakable delusion. You have now reached the absolute zenith of this $5,000 masterclass. Your logical, realistic, terrified human mind has been completely dismantled, destroyed, and rebuilt into the invincible, psychopathic architecture of the ultimate creator. You have been entirely absolved of the pathetic requirement to be realistic about your money ever again. Realism is dead to you. The five senses are dead to you. The illusion of the physical mirror is permanently broken. I want you to take a deep, slow breath and feel the immense, silent, terrifying power that is currently vibrating in your chest. You are no longer a victim of your bank account. You are the architect of the cosmos. The numbers on your screen are just digital ink, completely subservient to your next command. You will never again look at your physical circumstances and ask them for permission to feel wealthy. You will never again wait for the dead mirror to smile first. You have mastered the brazen impudence of the billionaire. You are completely, aggressively out of touch with the illusion of poverty, and you are entirely, vibrantly alive to the absolute, undeniable reality of your own infinite wealth. If you have absorbed the frequency of this monumental transmission, your consciousness has been permanently altered. You can never go back to being the terrified, logical human being who shakes in fear at the sight of a physical bill. You know the absolute truth of the dead physical echo, and you know the supreme world-altering power of your own delusion. But to permanently lock this arrogant, untouchable identity into the physical matrix of your reality, and to issue your final, irreversible command to the quantum field, you must take one last, defiant physical action. You must leave a permanent, undeniable signature on the fabric of the universe that proves you have officially murdered your realistic mind. I want you to step fully into the quiet, terrifying power of the ultimate creator. I want you to scroll down to the comments section directly below this video. I want you to type these exact words with the cold, psychopathic certainty of a ruler who knows that the entire physical world is nothing but a delayed reflection of their own magnificent madness. Do not type it with hope. Do not type it with excitement. Type it with the absolute crushing boredom of a god stating a basic, undeniable fact of existence. Type, I stop reacting. I gaslight the universe into millions. Let the physical movement of your fingers typing those words be the absolute final moment you ever acknowledge the illusion of poverty or react to financial limitations. Make the ultimate declaration right now. I stop reacting. I gaslight the universe into millions. The illusion of the logical mind is completely destroyed. The physical world is fully yours to command. Go sit on the throne and enjoy the massive, explosive wealth that your psychological dominance has already guaranteed.